Welcome to Wednesdays with Willa. I am your host, Willa White, and this is my weekly podcast show that airs on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern on my Facebook page, Willa White Medium. It also goes out on the Lilydale Assembly Facebook page, as well as my YouTube channel. And you can certainly look back at all the archived videos of the show because this is year 8 of episodes of Wednesdays with Willa. And I have had so many wonderful guests and topics throughout the year. So I encourage you to look back at those and enjoy them. Many people tell me that they watch them, they binge watch them, depending on what topic they're most interested in. So you can search by topics and you can search by guest names, and it really is a great resource, is what other people tell me. So please like, share, subscribe, follow, and all those good things so that we can keep more wonderful shows coming to you. And I am thrilled to have back on my show today, Colin Bates. Thanks for being here today, Colin.
The joy to be with you all once again to share this wonderful time.
Yes, and Colin is a very special person. He actually comes from the United Kingdom, and he is a spiritual medium and healer, as well as being an ordained minister of the Journey Within Church, which is in New Jersey. So he's definitely on both sides of the pond, very active and teaching in both spaces and even online. And you can find more information about Colin at his website, colinbates.com, because I know he has lots of wonderful lectures and events and classes that he offers. And I think it's really important to note that some of the prior shows that we've done have been really, really fabulous. I was just looking back through them, and one is Transformation of the Soul, which would be a great one for people to watch after they view this one, and also Healing Grief Through Mediumship. And we've done palliative care and the spirit experience. So when people are going through the end of life and hospice, things like that, as well as exploring trance mediumship. So we've already done such a wealth of topics. And today, you all are very fortunate and very blessed. Colin is going to be sharing with us sitting in the power. So that's our topic for today. And it is really a very special topic because this is an important engagement that we can do energetically as mediums and people who aren't necessarily pursuing that in a professional way. But certainly Colin is one of the best people to talk about sitting in the power.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And can I just say what a joy it is to be with you once again and just to catch up. Where forever love and light exists, there will always be a connection. And for me, when we talk about the spirit and we talk about how we move into the different states of consciousness, then we bring in very much to talk about the sitting in the power. And so for me, mediumistic development is also very much a part of the spiritual aspect, the soul aspect. And it's very interesting because when we were talking before to do with the transformation of the soul, the primary function of sitting in the power is the transformation of the soul. It's the spiritualization of the soul and its connection to the divine creative force in whom we move and have our very being. And so, the way that I want to really bring this across to you today is to speak about the duality of sitting in the power, and that it's not just to do with unfolding the mediumistic powers. It's very much to do with the soul journey and its realization of its interconnectiveness with the physical world, the spiritual world, and the spirit, because everything is one.
Mhm.
Everything is interconnected, you see. And perhaps what we should start with is meditation, because in meditation, we are the watcher. We allow that state to unfold. And what it does is it enhances the etheric senses of communication. We move into what we call the spirit mind. so that we are then able to start to perceive things in another way. And then we can look at contemplation, which is where there is an active, subtle part of the mind, the psychic part of the mind, which is active and is seeking to unfold that which is hidden.
Mm.
And then we move into sitting in the power. And one of the things that I think is so important to recognize is that we live in a physical world. And so the physical mind is the dominating factor of the time in which we live within it. And when we are within the physical mind, the subtle realms of the psyche and of the spirit are muted. And so, in order to start to build, to create, and to move our consciousness into an awareness of the spirit world, you have to, in some way, have that time of quiet,
Mhm.
that time of silence, so that we can then start to commune with the power. And what we don't always realize is that in order to fully experience the spirit, we have to be in an altered state of consciousness or a higher state of consciousness. And that is achieved through the mind because everything is of the mind. So if you're someone where your physical mind dominates, it's not easy to develop and unfold the powers of the medium because you're always wanting to watch, you're always wanting to interfere, and you're always wanting, of course, to be in control because that's what it is, really. And so what we look at here is that we need to really begin to prepare ourselves so that we can then begin to fully experience and become one with the experience itself on whatever level we are focusing, whether it is the intuitive, the psychic, whether it is with the spirit world.
Mhm.
We become that which we are seeking, you see. And
Yeah.
so because we are moving into that experience, the physical mind and everything that is to do with the physical world moves into a quietness.
Mm.
And what I always say is now prepare yourselves to begin to move into the quietness and to let go of your awareness of all that is of the physical world and begin to move and listen to the whispers of heaven. So, through the physical mind, what is happening is that we're starting to move our consciousness. And it's created, of course, through an act of will, because it is the power of the will that is the doorway to all aspects of the medium. You
Mm.
see, the
Mhm.
spirit world doesn't knock on our door. We open the door to the experience. You see, I remember years ago when I was only a baby trying to develop my mediumship. And I imagined that there would be this great revelation and that the spirit world would appear and knock on my consciousness and say, Oi, I'm here. Wouldn't that be rather marvelous? But it didn't. And then I began to realize that actually what we do within our consciousness is we seek a union. To realize that everything starts from an inner perspective because it is an inner relationship that creates an outward experience. So everything starts from this inner focus, which is, of course, our own spirit. And to really begin to realize that there is no separation between our spirit and the spirit world because we're already one. It's the power from whence we come, it's the light in which we live, and it is the eternal in which we return. So there is already that sense of connection But the physical mind at times will take us away from it.
Yeah.
And as it takes us away from it, you see, it creates a frustration. And what I always say to my lovely students is, you have to remember that this is a rapport, this is a relationship that we are creating and building. And that in order for that to really reach its fruition or the blossoming, as I call it, then you have to be dedicated, you have to be devotional to it
Mhm.
and give it time, you see, because the one word that people don't like to hear in this life is patience. Because as soon as we hear it, it's like, seriously? But it's patience, because slowly, slowly, you see, we begin to catch it and we begin to become it. So really, it is the removing of ourselves from the physical awareness into an inner reflection, you
Mhm.
see, because there is what we call the temple of our inner being, where forever love and light exist. Paramahansa Yogananda was one of the most extraordinary teachers, and he used to speak within his prayers, I place flowers of desirelessness upon the altar of my inner being, for their beauty is thine, O Lord. So what we are doing is we are surrendering to the devotion of the power. And really, that is what sitting in the power is. It is becoming one and recognizing within ourselves that there is no separation, because the spiritualization of the soul is the prime, it is the prime aspect of this life. And the unfolding of the mediumistic powers is a part of it. But the true development is the realization of who we are and the spiritualization of the soul and the recognition of that within our journey
Mhm.
and the oneness and the unity of all life. And in such, we are then reminded, we are empowered, we are nurtured, we are loved, and above all, you see, we are healed.
Mm.
So when you look at sitting in the power, there should be stages that you go through, and there should be times when you just sit and be. And it is very much about letting go of expectation, letting go of desire, and simply allowing ourselves to be. You see, the creative force, however you choose to perceive it, is the guiding force of all life. It is the many faces and the many pathways of the great mystery, which is only one source. And everything is a part of that, everything. All forms of healing, all forms of belief, all the many pathways, they are all a part of that same process, you see. And that's why really the power of the spirit is universal. And so really what we do is we honor all aspects of life. We honor all aspects of religion, and we take from that which inspires and empowers us to reach beyond the physical mind. And I always say beyond mind, beyond self, to the freedom of my power, to the expression of my spirit. So the starting point, you see, is the realization of who we are, our place within this world, and also our connection to the eternal creative force in whom we move and have our very being, you see. And we are never separate from it because you cannot be where God is not. But the physical mind can often separate us from the experience,
Mhm.
you see, because it dominates and we live within the physical mind. And so it's very much, and that's where the struggle is often
Yeah, that
when we are
tension.
trying to, yeah, when we are trying to unfold and to develop. It's to actually move beyond that state. Well, we know that everything is an altered state of consciousness. So you've got the physical mind, for instance, you've got the beta states, the
Right.
beta, the alpha, the theta, and the delta. So within the beta states, we are very much in the universal physical mind and world. But as soon as we start to move into concentration, meditation, communication, we are then moving into the beta, the alpha, and the alpha theta bridge is the
Mhm.
doorway to the superconscious mind, if you will, or the universal mind. And when we are within the universal mind, the past, the present, and the future will exist as one. There was an extraordinary lady called Eileen Garrett. And if you ever get the chance to read her, she is extraordinary. And she was one of the most scientifically tested mediums ever.
It's
Eileen J. Garrett, extraordinary. And so these different states of consciousness are all created, you see. But what I want to just bring there is that there is an intention to create, you see. So that's when we talk about the focus,
Mhm.
because many people really find it very hard to meditate, you see. Because in mediumship, for instance, we speak of awareness and perception, the ability to hold a single point
Yeah.
of experience.
Mhm.
And so, one of the ways that you can train yourself for sitting in the power is actually to do it with your eyes open to begin with. Because when the eyes are closed, the mind becomes the restless soul. And when we close our eyes, often, if we are still immersed within the physical mind, we go into the circus. And before 3 or 4 minutes are finished, we've got World War IV going on, you see. Have you ever experienced that where you're trying to meditate and all of a sudden everything begins to crowd in of the physical world? And after 4 minutes, you think, oh, I'm exhausted, I've had enough. And then you stop. So, as a precursor, and what I always say is before you sit, you should sit. You should sit to control the mind, to bring in the stillness, to embrace the stillness, and to deepen your awareness of the stillness. So that what you're then doing is you're beginning to create an atmosphere of devotion.
Mhm.
And the more that you can do that, the more that there is this wonderful cooperation within the process, you see. Give the mind something to do, then the mind becomes a tool of focus.
Mhm.
And I always use the breath. So when I'm watching the breath, I'm not thinking. I'm actually actively involved within this coming and going process that leads me more into a quietness and a stillness. And there's wonderful techniques that you can do where you stand outside of the room of the sacred meditation, and you literally, as a ritual, you let go of the physical world. This is the time of the spirit, the time of the heart. And I place to one side all that is of this life, and I devote myself to the presence of the power. And what you're doing is you're really creating a focus. And within that focus, you're starting to manifest, to build that energy. So I would always first, with my eyes open, create an awareness of that power within myself,
Mhm.
so that I'm already starting to move into another state of consciousness. And then you'll find it becomes much more solid as you unfold it.
Mhm.
Because it's the same with mediumship. When you're trying to talk to Granny, if you haven't built that power first, you'll have like 101 things going through your mind at once. And poor old Granny won't stand a chance of being listened to. It's true, honestly. And so, what you need, I know myself. And so, you see, what you need to do is you need to create and instill that quietness. I can feel it growing, you see, as I'm talking. And then, as you move into these practices, you'll have a much better time. And I think also to realize that there are times when you need to nurture your spirit, that there are times when you need to heal, to nurture, and to strengthen, you see. And you will find that as you continue to unfold this journey, the power will call you. And you will find that there will be this hunger that grows within us to get closer to the divine source of all life, you see. So, mediumship is a byproduct, really. I mean, it's an important part, but the greatest part is the spiritualization of the soul and the realization of who we are, you see. So when we're teaching and people come, it's not necessarily about learning how to communicate with Granny. It's about learning how to communicate with your own self in embracing the soul and making us more a part of the universal life. And the mediumistic powers, yes, they are part of that process, but in no way are the totality of it. Because once you've received your proof, once you have this awareness that life is continuous, what then? Is that it? Can't be, can it? It's a progressive journey that leads us into a deeper, richer questing for the universe and for life, for the spirit, and for the great spirit. Everything is a part of everything, you see. And so the starting point of sitting in the power is really embracing the universal power of your own spirit. It is an internal process that creates an external experience. And all forms of mediumship are an internal process that creates an external experience via the auric field.
Mhm.
That experience is created through love. The power of love, compassion, and understanding, the three guiding forces of creation, you see. And when you focus upon that, it will take you beyond yourself into the universal collective energy. And so, whenever we work as a medium, for instance, if you do that, then you go beyond self, beyond mind, to the freedom. And if you're someone, for instance, who has issues to do with trust and confidence, then if you do that, then you no longer exist. What exists is that which you are creating, and you become stronger within it, you see.
Mhm.
And that is so wonderful. So, this starting point of sitting in the power is the recognition of the divine force within you and I, and within everything that is created, you
Mhm.
see. And often you see, for instance, when we are outside, we breathe more deeply because we're beginning to recognize the divine force within the breath. It's as if we, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. So it's also about finding that space for you that is right for you. I often work in Sweden, for instance, and you're never far from water or trees or rocks in Sweden. It's just an extraordinary country. And so it's imbued by the power. And of course, Lilydale, oh my goodness, it is one of the most sacred places in this world. It is joyful in its power, you see. And so how we connect to that is also going to be individual to how you are and how you resonate with the world. You know, there's that wonderful song, God of the granite and the rose, soul of the sparrow and the bee, the mighty tide of being flows through all creation, Lord, to thee. It is everything. It is everything that we are, everything that we perceive leads us into that union. And so often sitting in the power can be our refuge, our place of belonging,
Mm.
you see. And so there should always be that part where you are just simply within that divine connection. And you see, there are times as a medium, as a sensitive, for instance, with the power of the empath, influenced by people, time, places, even the energy of the world, my goodness, where you need to move into that place of refuge, where you need to nurture yourself and to strengthen yourself. Because as a sensitive, it is so easy to be there for everyone. And you're not there, you're not even on the list. And to recognize actually that you need to be near the top, that you actually need to nurture, to take care, to empower, you see. So the sitting in the power technique itself is really something that was given to us by the spirit world. It's not man-made, it's spirit-made. And it's about creating a time to commune with the spirit, you see. So that first part for me is really important
Yeah.
because it's about centering, it's about honoring, it's about embracing the totality of who we are. Because it's not just our relationship with the spirit world. There is something that calls us into service. There is something that calls us into the sacredness of the pathway. And that, of course, is the creative force because it is the power of everything. So taking time within that. So there should be times when you just sit for you and I, sit for our connection to the creative force, for the spiritualization of the soul itself. Because the soul is on journey, you see. We have been before and we will be again. This facet of now is unique, but I think we have to be more open-minded to the journey, you know, and our relationship to the spirit was created long before you and I were born. I mean, can you imagine being within heaven, sitting in heaven? Wouldn't that be astounding? Sitting within heaven and talking to the spirit, because you are the spirit, of course, and meeting all those wonderful people who say to you, I will be with you throughout the whole of your journey within the physical life, and I will support you and I will love you, because that's how it happens. And so the relationship that we have with the spirit world is not just by chance. No, no, no. It is because there is a soul connection that you and I have that has been created because your mediumship and the unfolding of the spiritual powers is part of the blueprint of the physical world.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you see, I believe that that was agreed upon before life uttered its first moments. And that's why you will always find you may run from it, you may hide from it, but it will never leave you. And every so often, there will be a signpost which points its way back. And I also believe that there are signposts and people that come into our lives at a certain time and point the way because they were meant to be there. And sometimes that's even more important than family. There are connections within connections. I am positive within that way. So for me, the preparation, the starting point, the building of that communion is so important. The atmosphere that we create should always have a devotional element within it. Thy will, not my will. Lead me and guide me. Surround me with love, that I may be as thou wouldst be, and do as thou wouldst do. Eternal light and creator of all life, in whom we move and have our very being, be with me. So we invoke it, you see, excuse me. We invoke it, we create it, and we become it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so maybe for 10 minutes or so, or even longer sometimes, just to sit within the presence of the heart and the light of the soul and its divine connection. Because also, you know, when you look at the mediumistic powers, look at prophecy. Well, prophecy is from creation, it's the God force. So if you're one with the power itself, sometimes in our mediumship, something just comes that brings inspiration, light, and encouragement. And that comes from the source itself. Well, that's where prophecy exists. So, really, working on that union is so important because also look at the power of healing,
Mhm.
pure love, pure creation. So, the combination of the creative universal love, which is, of course, compassion, which is the power to heal. And then you could then look at the trance healing,
Mhm.
the healing with the spirit world. So you would take that stage into the next stage. And so there are times when I truly believe you just need to be. And when we speak of those techniques, it's about letting go of expectation, letting go of desire, and simply allowing the process to unfold. And just in the same way, where we are the observer within meditation, we should also be the observer within sitting in the power. It
Mhm.
is a non-active mental state so that we can really be more a part of the unfolding experience. If you are questioning with your mind, then there is a very strong likelihood that your own mind will answer you.
That's right.
Whereas if you are within the silence,
Mhm.
where all thoughts of the heart are known, then you may receive an answer to that which is hidden or that which is created within the heart. You see, we always say in prayer we speak to God, in meditation God speaks to us. So you're creating that silence for the communion of the power to come into being. And also, if we think about it, the spirit world doesn't know how to work with you. You'd think it would, but it doesn't. No, because no two people are the same energetically. And no two people will resonate and harmonize with the spirit world in quite the same way. So, in sitting in the quiet, in the power, the spirit world has a chance to get to know you, you see. And I always say, if you want to listen to the whispers of heaven, then listen. Create time to listen, and then you'll begin to hear the whispers, you see. So, that's the first part.
Hmm.
So then, from the sitting within the quiet, embracing the universal power, acknowledging through the heart, really,
Hmm.
the universal power, because everything is through the heart and everything is created within that moment of being. What I then do is move my consciousness through the divine source to the spirit world, because the spirit world is part of the creative divine source. It
Hmm.
lives within the heart of it,
Hmm.
you see. So if you want a way to really build your power before you work as a medium, that's the way to do it, is to really start first with your own universal connection to compassion. How may I serve? How may I be of service? And then moving through that with it to the spirit world. So everything is interconnected like a wonderful flow of energy. You know, the rich tapestry of life that weaves its wonderful web of colors unto creation, you see. And then really there is an expansion. So whether it is the temple of your inner being, whether it is the heart, whether it is the hara, the seat of the soul, or the spiritual heart, there is that point of expansion and radiating love. Because immediately you radiate love, you immediately move onto a higher level of consciousness. Exactly the same as you do through prayer, because prayer is a form of love. You see. And then as you do that, you are then moving your own consciousness to the spirit world. And what we have to remember here is that it's so important to build that atmosphere, because the more you can build it, the stronger that will become. Absolutely. The stronger it will become. And then, of course, the guiding force of the spirit is the guiding force of you and I. And we tend to feel it to begin with as the totality,
Hmm.
as just an all-encompassing energy. But as we begin to sit within the power, it then begins to become an individuality, because we begin to realize that there are many minds within the spirit world. There may be one voice, but they are connected through many minds, you see. And so within that, we start to build, we start to create, or we start to become. So we then move from that universal state of being into an awareness of the spirit world. And everything starts at a point of presence.
Hmm.
And that's where we're all individual, because we all experience it, perhaps just a little bit differently. And when we experience that point of presence, the whole of our awareness steps into that point and blends, merges, and becomes one. And there you have it. And really, we speak of surrendering,
Hmm. Hmm.
and very few people surrender, to be honest. So I think we should cooperate rather than surrender. I mean, many people have, for instance, Andrew Jackson Davis, for instance, was able to diagnose and prescribe in Latin and even write it. And that was extraordinary, wasn't it? The Poughkeepsie seer. So, and then moving from that level to another level, where we are then aware of the blessed presence of the Spirit. And then, of course, you see, there is a blending. You see, there is a blending of energy that takes place. And as that blending takes place, there is a transformative element within it.
Hmm.
There is a quickening, if
Yes.
you will, etherically. And I believe there is also a great learning which is taking place, even if it is on a very subconscious level, that when that union is starting to build and to take place, that then there is a transformation
Hmm.
that is taking place. I do believe that truly.
Hmm.
But then when there is an awareness of the spirit, we are then able more to be inspired by the spirit,
Hmm.
you see. And in order to really be inspired by the spirit, you have to be receptive. And of course, the more that we are receptive, the more that we begin to merge, blend, and become one within that process. So there's a real pattern of unfolding within the sitting in the power. And there is actually different levels of focus within it.
Hmm.
So perhaps what we should then look at is what is it that you're seeking to do?
Hmm.
What are you seeking to bring into being? The
Hmm.
first and foremost is the spiritualization of the soul. Absolutely. But then also for the unfolding of the mediumistic powers, it then changes
Hmm.
into more of an awareness of the spirit. And in such moments, we may then begin to experience on a more personal level the presence of the spirit.
Hmm.
And when that comes into being, they may then possibly share an aspect of who they are, an aspect of their life, their mission in working with you, and also the sense of sharing unconditional love, because that is one of the greatest gifts of the Spirit, is not only knowing that you are loved, but feeling it within that way. And really, the many powers of the Spirit for me are not just communication, it's life, because it's transformational. And really, it's a great becoming, because ultimately we become that which we are seeking to be. That's true faith
Sure.
when you know it,
Hmm.
not when someone tells you or not when you read it, but actually when you really experience it, the three pillars of faith, when it becomes absolute, when you know it, you see, you begin to actually embrace it on a much deeper level. And you know, one of the greatest battles we have within mediumship is really acknowledging and recognizing that you are the medium. And once you own it, you are it, you see, and there's no battle. You just embrace it, you see. And that's why I always say to people, be strong, be positive, and always remember that there is a part of your soul that is intrinsically linked to the spirit world and that this was meant to be. Embrace it and become it within that way. So I would then move from one level to another level.
Hmm.
And of course, as well, part of that process is to merge and blend in as strong a way as possible because it is an evolving process.
Hmm.
Therefore, we are then able to touch, become one with those higher minds of the spirit. So there is an evolution there within growth. I do believe that,
Mhm.
you see. And that's why also there are times of change energetically and especially mediumistically, because you may have the pillar of the power, which has been with you since before you and I were born, but there is also the coming and the going of the support and the presence of those who work with us in the spirit world. And it can feel like a grief, you see, because you get so used to things in a certain way, and then all of a sudden they change, and then it's madness. Oh my God, I've lost it. They've deserted me. Isn't that marvelous? I've lost it again. When really, when you look at it, there has to be this evolution. Things can't stay the same. Life should be constant. It should be moving. It should be evolving. And if it isn't, you then to go backwards as well if you're not careful. So always empowering change, embracing change, and then you'll find that it moves forward for you. And to remember, of course, that when these times of change come into being, you need to sit. That is when you need to sit to nurture, to strengthen, you see, because the spirit world do not see us as physical beings. They see us as beings of light because they don't exist in this physical world. You know, they are part of it, but they're not of it. Good Lord. And there's a wonderful saying, Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. Oh, you should read his stuff. And he said, the soul is dyed by the color of our thoughts.
Mm.
And so the desire to serve grows within the soul. And as it grows, the colors begin to grow. And as the colors begin to grow, the spirit world begins to really start to see that desire and are drawn to you by that desire to support that desire, but also to continue their mission upon earth through their mediums.
Mhm.
And that's why there are changes that take place. Now, the core of the power will never change because those that walk the path with you will always be there. But there are many who will come and go, may complete their mission, may start their mission. But it's through the color of the desire that they come and they are drawn to us, you see.
Mhm.
And that's why the more that you can devote yourself, the more that growth will come into being. But if you don't, then it's going to take a lot longer, you see, because, you know, and I always say to people, how do you feed your soul? What do you do for you? How do you create that within yourself? Because it is something that we should all look at. And my goodness, the state of the world today. There has never been a greater time for the solidarity of peace to radiate, you see, because we live in the non-local reality, therefore everything is universal, everything is constant, and everything is now. So the power of positivity and the power of thoughts and prayer are universal and absolute and immediate, you see, and if you've got enough of us doing it, that's when a revolution of the spirit is created, you see. So honoring the spirit, honoring self, looking at the duality within the sitting in the power, and the embracing of the spirit, moving our thoughts, but staying with the divine, because really that's how healing is generated, because it is a universal power, a
Mhm.
universal force. And if possible, to sit in the same place
Mm.
because you build a vortex of power there.
Right.
You know, if you visit somewhere that has this resonance, then, you know, you walk into it and it's there for you. The ritual, you know, people don't like the word ritual these days, but how we prepare ourselves is a ritual. You know, half hour before you sit, the lighting of candles, well, that's ancient before you even begin. The lighting of incense, frankincense, points the way, the birth of ideas to that which has been before.
Mm. Hmm.
Always light three together to the order of the universe. Play music, build an atmosphere, you see, because the power will build before you see it and it will encourage you. I do believe that. And then, really, when I'm doing my sitting in the power, I usually do it about an hour.
Okay.
But the focus is inspirational because I
Mm.
do it in my teaching groups. So it would perhaps depend upon, um, even upon the aspect that we were working on,
Right. Right.
because you can do it in a way that empowers and creates and instills confidence. You can do it as a way of um, the meeting point of the spirit
Hmm.
to enable the spirit world to start to really draw close to us energetically. Because as we know, it's through the auric field and not the physical body.
Hmm.
So, and then this time of communion,
Right.
and this time of listening, this time of being, you see. And then, of course, it just depends because then there is a focus upon the mediumistic powers
Hmm.
and the unfolding of the mediumship.
Right.
And that has to start first. And it was always believed that you should start first with learning how to be at one with the power itself.
Hmm.
You see, in this age, we do it backwards. Everybody wants to talk to Granny, but nobody wants to talk to themselves. So it's like mediumship is instantaneous, and they all want to do it immediately. Whereas if I was to say to them, now, what I want you to do is just to be and just to sit within the quiet, and they'd go, seriously? Yes. And if you did courses on it, um, I mean, you would have people come who were devotional,
Sure.
but you certainly would not get the same numbers. So it's something that we instill, I think, within ourselves. I mean, how do you sit in the power? I mean, I've been rambling on away, as always.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing about that because I do think it's an essential part of mediumship. My mother was so wonderful to instruct me initially, even as a child, in sitting in the power and really in that place of humbleness, meeting that divine truth and really sensing the beautiful fabric of energy was around me and to how to really connect in with that spirit light first. So
Mm,
having that divine connection first, that that is always the home base.
mm.
That's
That's
home
one.
base.
Mm,
So anything that you're doing in terms of mediumship and healing or and other things, right? That having that as your home base, all you have to do is be in that alignment, that attunement, and allow the work to issue forth from you from that place. And if at any point the thinking mind or other events are occurring around you during that, go back to the remembrance and the acknowledgement and attunement of that home base so that the sitting in the power is like it's easy to get kind of distracted. Oh,
absolutely.
come back, come back to that. And so it becomes And to me, it's not a meditation per se. It's just easier to use that word in describing it to others, that it has more to do with a recognition of divine truth within.
Mm.
And so I do start with my eyes closed many times just to kind of shut out any of those external
Absolutely.
experiences
Mm.
and to allow that vision and experience the divine light to be what is present only for me first. And then I can open my eyes and hold that divine light, that recognition when my eyes are open. So I do start with my eyes closed.
Mm. No, but that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, it it is something that is beautiful, and it is an aspect of self that we should encourage, really,
Yeah.
because we know that in some ways mediumship has started to lose its sacredness.
Yeah,
I
that's why it's
feel
so
that.
important to have that, because
Mhm.
mediumship being such a sacred joy
Mm.
and having the umbrella of the religion, I think helps people understand that it needs to be in that spiritual construct
Absolutely.
and maintain that
Yes.
solidity, because the secular world, not where it's at. So even
No.
with students, I instruct them to attune to that spirit light, to really sit in the power of the energy and do that on a very regular basis. And even before all of my message work, public message work, before my readings, I make sure that I am in alignment with that first, because then I know I've got the awareness of the link,
Absolutely.
and I can keep threaded with that throughout the experience. Yeah.
It
So
does become stronger. It does.
yeah,
Because many people they start the concentration of that, but they haven't built it. So therefore it doesn't become solid.
that's right.
It becomes bitsy.
Right.
So building that starting point takes us much further into the presence of it,
Mhm.
and it begins to empower it in a way that unfolds the experience in a much stronger way, you see,
Mhm.
and also in a loving way, because then you've got compassion, you've got healing, and all of those aspects come in within every word. So absolutely, it's beautiful,
I do
really.
have some questions about, so when you say, yeah, you start with your eyes open, so you're sitting
No,
in the power,
yes,
or
yes, and no.
okay, all right, all right,
I have to just backtrack a bit with yes and
yes,
no.
okay.
I, s- when I've got people who have difficulty in finding that focus of concentration,
Mhm.
I say start with your eyes open to a fixed point
Ah,
where it can empower you. Say,
mhm,
like I'm looking at the trees,
mhm,
and then I'm visualizing connecting energetically to the energy of creation.
mhm.
And it can help them to start to um, visualize and get them moving more into a oneness.
Okay,
Um, and then after a period of time, it's more easy for them to do it with the eyes closed.
yes.
So there's a duality there with that. I mean, I always do it with my eyes shut.
Ah, okay. So you always do it.
Mm,
Isn't it funny? So because my mother is a spirit artist, so she's always taught me in terms of making sure that the vision is set
mm, yeah.
and the experience of that is set as the true canvas before you.
Gosh, isn't that wonderful?
She is. And so I think it is correct that people do need to sit in the power and
Absolutely.
solidify their intention and that law, that spiritual natural law of loving service, right?
Mm,
That is setting the right intention and having the right practice are the two main ingredients, in my opinion, to
Yes,
building a healthy mediumship practice, but also being able to hold that in a sustained, consistent way for years to come.
totally. It's the
Yes.
guiding force of everything, really. It is the power, it is the presence, it is the guiding force. I hold to that with every ounce of my being.
So, would you
Totally.
encourage students of life and of mediumship and healing to sit in the power for an hour and begin in these ways? And then, after they have started to establish that spirit is working profoundly through them in delivering evidential, consistent messages of love, that they still maintain the practice, but
Oh, yes.
they're of course, um, I think it's important to do that, uh, at the beginning of a message service and then after. You kind of have
Mm.
to, oh, okay, step out of the
Yes,
power. Wouldn't you say that there's a stepping out of the power, or
absolutely,
after your
because you're
time
in.
of doing private reading, stepping out of that power for a bit?
Totally, yes.
Yeah.
Because what we have to remember is you are in a higher state of sensitivity,
Hmm. Hmm.
and there can also be a transference of emotion because you cannot move into that moment without touching an emotion that may resonate with us as an individual because we know it, as well as with the spirit world because they inspire it, and also with the recipient who's lived it.
Yes.
So when you have finished that time, you should always move into that moment of I always talk about the gratitude. And as you move into the gratitude, there is a releasing. And sometimes you touch upon things that are deeply emotional, and you cannot help but be touched by them, especially within the healing as well, of course.
Yeah.
And that this sense of release with compassion and love, and then bringing ourselves back quietly, softly, and gently.
Mm.
Because remember, there's this great expansion of sensitivity. Therefore, there must be this coming back to the here and the now. And what I teach is the earth is our place of belonging. So when we consciously have come into that time of finishing, that you move your awareness into the earth, you give gratitude for all that is, and you release to the
Mhm.
power that knows all, loves all, and understands all, which is compassion. So you're bringing healing to those situations and emotions. And what is so important is that that becomes a discipline. Now, many people don't like the word discipline, but if you stare at it, you see disciple, the seeker, and the searcher of truth.
Yes.
And that what you need to do is to foster that.
Hmm.
Because if you don't, then you can move into times of hypersensitivity.
Right.
And that can become disturbing
Mhm.
after a time because we are influenced by people, time, places, and emotion. And so we are not physically, mentally designed to be within that moment of sensitivity 24/7.
So, yeah.
However, you can be within God's grace within the heart every second of your being.
Amen to that.
Totally, you see.
So
And this is one of the things that is so important within the learning process is that the responsibilities of sensitivity and that we are the doorway to the experience. Therefore,
yeah.
when we come into that time of quietness, there is also a bringing together of the sacredness and a moving into the earth and the awareness that I am within the physical realm and my heart is still connected, you see. And I think if you do that, you can maintain your strength a lot longer.
Hmm.
And within the sitting in the power, you see you're you're growing. It's not just the foundation, it's the continuation, it's the developing, and that development never stops
True.
because we're all still seeking, you know, we're all still, there's all still a part of all of us that is still seeking a greater understanding and a greater depth of knowledge. And I think if you lose that, then you need to take time just to re-nurture.
Yeah, re-nurturing. It's an essential component of this. And I love how you've described, because sometimes it's hard to find words for this experience, but the sitting in the power is such an essential component of a student on up to advanced medium.
Mm,
And it's just part of development of the soul, as you say. And
absolutely.
it's something that when you've been sitting in the power, you're building of that power so that when it's time to do public mediumship, you're in that space. And it's so glorious to
It
stand
is.
there in that
Mm,
in with that pillar of support as you described. And then
absolutely.
it's almost like the power is unleashed.
Yes,
And
totally.
as
I
you're
would
as you're
agree.
giving
Mm,
out a message, and because it's almost like the timing goes, and now,
yeah.
and now, and you can feel it filling up the space in your experience,
Mm.
and there's beauty in all of that. And then
Oh, absolutely.
finishing up a method or a reading, and you could kind of it's coming back, it's coming back. Oh,
Yes,
and
that's it. I
yeah,
mean, that is it because really it's that radiating of love
yes.
that builds the atmosphere. Because also, when you are working publicly, you're bringing everyone into that atmosphere.
Do you know what I call it? I call it the spirit reality field.
Yes, that's nice. I
You're
like that.
bringing that in them into that. So even if it's not something that's been part of their consciousness, all of a sudden,
Yes.
part of this reality field that you've helped to create that helps
Mm,
to feel and understand and connect with loved
mm.
ones in spirit and see that others are having those connections. If they're
Absolutely. Yes, because it also plants the seeds. Because many people are there because they're curious or they're also seeking,
yeah.
and this desire is awakening within them. And I always say that, when we work, it's the food of the soul. It's
Hmm.
bringing that realization of who we are, our connection, our place to the divine source, but also the healing that is created within those moments is astounding.
Yes.
Mm,
It's
totally.
totally astounding, and it's a big reason why we do what we do as mediums and really work
Absolutely.
to convey that. And some days it feels like there's so much work when you have, again, that discipline word. But if you do the work, if you do the discipline, you'll be able to work more powerfully and be able to maintain that power. So sitting in the power means you get to maintain the power and
Yes, I
feel
totally.
sustained. Hmm.
Mm. And really that's when it's transformative
Yeah.
because the vibration, everything is when we look at the earth, the physical earth, nothing is solid. We appear solid, but we are a vibratory energy. Well, so is the spirit world. We call it an etheric world, but the vibration is a quickening. It's a much quicker. So when you move into that higher state of consciousness, there is this quickening of your own etheric energy. So therefore, what we are doing is we are refining that process. So it becomes an act of will.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then we can move from one level of conscious to another quite easily, you see.
Very true.
And then the cooperation, of course, will lead to the fulfillment of the experience.
Yeah.
And then it becomes thy will, not my will. So rather than trying to control it with your mind, you are actually allowing the power to inspire us. And then
Hmm.
you know, of course, that you've got the trueness of that which is needed in order to fulfill the journey of the spirit, which is so beautiful.
It is so beautiful. And you know, what it's coming to mind is, you know, when people have vision issues, right? Maybe they need glasses or contacts or whatever it is. And so they have a little bit of a skewed vision, right? So they may have a vision glasses, but it only gives them vision of a certain degree. But when you are sitting in the power of spirit, it's like focal lenses, not just bifocals, multifocal lenses, so that you're able to see all the dimensions, all of the connections.
Absolutely.
When you're in the power, it's everything has come into your sight and into your experience, and it's accessible.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally.
Now, I know that your time is valuable, but any last thoughts you'd like to share with folks today about sitting in the power?
Well, I just really know that the individuality
Yeah.
is important,
Yes.
and remember, in the whole of the universe, there is no one who is like you. In your individuality is your beauty. Your connection to the power of all life is one of the most sacred things. It is a hunger, it is a thirst, it is something that we are seeking to move, to blend, and to become at one with. But also, as well, when you look at the sensitivity of the soul, there is a facet there within you and I that has an awareness of another world. And I will guarantee it that, throughout the journey of life, you've been seeking to embrace your place of belonging. Now imagine that in relation to the spirit world.
Mm.
There are all those wonderful people who move into the realms of light and mind, are seeking to bring that message back to those that are still part of them, but not physically.
Mm.
If you can imagine the love and the dedication that you create within such moments, it's life changing, and it's called hope. And we could not wish you greater success, because it really is an absolute realization of who you are and who you already are. For it's a great becoming, transformative. Yeah.
Mm. Isn't it? It's just so wonderful to listen to you, Colin. I know
We never
everybody,
have enough time, do we? It just
we
goes
don't
on
have
and on.
enough
I don't
time.
stop talking, one of the two.
But thank you for bringing into
Oh,
perspective how to access those realms of light and of love. It's been so beautiful for you to share with us today. I encourage people to check out Colin's website at colinbates.com and to watch this video again and all the rest of the ones that I mentioned at the beginning of our episode today. Sitting in the power. And before I forget, during January, I'm doing a video learning series of online classes that were video
oh, wonderful.
viewing only. So people who are wanting to learn to how to meditate, or the magical journey within, and how to access your own inner guide, those kinds of things will be part of the video learning package that you should definitely check out for this month. So thank you
Beautiful.
everyone for tuning in today, and thank you, Colin, for being here again. We'll of course have you back.
Bless you. I look forward to seeing you all again. And, just remember, everyone, how beloved you are of the power itself, of the spirit, of the earth, the sea, the sky, and the totality of all that we are. You are loved. Always remember that.
You are loved indeed. And be back next week for another great show, for more wonderful love for our guest, who is Suzanne Giesman. Appreciate everyone for tuning in for next week as well. All right, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. See you again.